There's one thing that's probably about the last thing that we think about when we think about SEO and marketing. It's really about the last thing that we think about that we need to do. But it is no longer the last thing that we should be doing. As a matter of fact, it's becoming more and more important every day. And that one thing is exactly what I'm talking about today on episode 67 of the SEO and More podcast. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. Remember, hey, hit pause real quick. Do me a favor. Give me a rating and a review on whichever podcast player you're on. Just do it real quick. I appreciate it a great deal. It helps a lot. The more ratings and reviews I get, the higher I get in the podcast search engines, the more people can find this. And that way you're doing your part to help your fellow business people. Hey, there's one thing, like I mentioned, that we really don't think about when it comes to marketing and doing SEO on our websites. And that one thing is hosting. Seriously, hosting. Think about it. Now, the last time you hosted a party, what did you wear? Was it business formal? Was it business casual? What kind of food did you have? Now, of course, I'm not talking about hosting a party. What I'm talking about is web hosting. Where is your website located? Do you have a Wix website? Maybe it's Square Pages. Maybe you have a custom website on a custom hosting. And what's the difference between them? And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today and why. And I've talked about this before, but I want to go into a little bit. Let's go back 10, 15 years. I would have told my clients, never in 10 years would you want a WordPress website. Because 10 years ago, WordPress did not work well with the search engines. It just didn't. I could do a custom HTML website and get it on top of Google, Yahoo, Bing, whichever one, 10 times faster than a WordPress website and 100 times easier. That doesn't mean that there weren't any WordPress websites on page one of Google for keywords. They were very few and far between. And the people who were trying to get them onto page one spent a huge amount of time doing it. It just simply wasn't worth it. Today, things have changed a great deal. A few years ago, WordPress made some major changes. Their themes are extremely, and not just the themes, but the back end of WordPress itself, extremely SEO friendly now. So much more friendly. I'd say it's 90 to 95% as effective as custom HTML. So why do people do WordPress versus custom HTML? The custom HTML is so much more difficult to do. You might spend $1,500 doing a WordPress website, and at the same time, you'd be spending $8,000 or $9,000 to do the same website using custom HTML. Again, it's kind of flipped, hasn't it? It's just not worth it to do custom HTML sites anymore. That's why 70% of the internet is WordPress. But maybe you don't have WordPress. Maybe you have a Wix website or Square Pages. See, Wix and Square Pages are like WordPress was about 10 years ago. The websites can look amazing. I've seen Square Pages websites that I didn't think Square Pages could do. They were amazing websites, but they still would have a very difficult time of getting very high in the search engines, simply because the back-end Square Pages code, and Wix is like this as well, you can't change that. You can't manipulate it. So there's errors in that coding that you can't fix. And if you can't fix it, then the search engines are going to have a much more difficult time indexing that site. That's why we recommend WordPress so much now. But I don't recommend you going to WordPress.com and hosting it there. And again, this might change, but right now, WordPress.com has some pretty slow servers. That's where the real question about hosting comes in, because Google, Bing, Yahoo, Yandex, all of them are starting to rank how high a website gets into search engines by how fast it loads. That's right. If your website looks beautiful and people love it, but it loads slow, you could rank lower than your competitors. It's that important. I've been doing a lot of research the last couple of months on this, and I've actually found out that I'm going to guess 60 to 65% of the websites. Let's use a scale of 1 to 100. 1 meaning slower than a slug, 100 faster than a rabbit or a cheetah, whichever you choose. The average website right now ranks about 45, unless you have a video on your website. If you have a video on the front page, you're going to drop down to about 19 or 20. And that's terrible. which means the websites that even rank 60 to 80 are going to be higher in the search engines than the average. If you can rank 90 to 100, you're going to blow people away. Yes, that does mean sacrificing some imagery or maybe just some quality to the imagery. But a large part of that could simply be the company that you're hosting with. Wix servers may be old. Square Pages servers may be old. They may be hosting on the old servers simply because it's free. There's no incentive for them to put your free website onto a faster server, which is why I recommend going to coolwithak.webhosting.com. Yes, that's our hosting. That is fast hosting. You could go with one of the higher, seriously higher monthly fees, which is $15 a month. It's not expensive. That's some seriously cheap SEO, isn't it? $15 a month. We don't do anything at this company for $15 a month. But if that makes your website faster, that's worth it right there. You can do the WordPress hosting there, but I highly recommend a Cool Web Hosting to do the cPanel hosting. There's lots of places that do cPanel hosting. You want places that have the faster servers and the faster connections. At Cool Web Hosting, we've got very fast connections. I have websites that rank 90 to 100 that are on those servers. My own websites are on those servers. I wouldn't be doing this hosting if I didn't trust it like that. But it doesn't matter whether you go to Cool Web Hosting or wherever it is. You want to find out how fast your website is loading. And again, if it's not loading fast, there's two main steps to it that you can fix possibly yourself. One, change your hosting. That's going to be very important. Two, look at how many images or if there's a video on the site. And if there is, lower the quality of the images. Yeah, they're not going to look as good, but your site's going to load a lot faster. Or get rid of that video and put an image there instead. Those are the two biggest things that you can do to fix that. But step one, of course, find out if you actually... Oh, sorry, there's this weird thing that just popped up on my computer. Find out if your website is loading slow. Go to tysfreebook.com, that's TYS, freebook.com, and download the workbook. Is your website search engine friendly? One of the things in the workbook is to find out how fast your website is loading. You can find out yourself, and it's not going to cost you a penny to do so. Thanks a lot for being a part of this episode of Easy SEO and More. And again, give us a review, give us a ranking or a rating, if nothing else. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next week.